Yes, that's right. It's the squeeze. We are back in the dog days of August. I'm Logan Lockhart. That right there is Tyler Milliken, and it's presented by Primetime Sports Talk. Well, we haven't been back doing this week by week since the trade deadline, but we're back now. You know, the dog days of August apply to everyone, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just the players on the field, it's everyone. But we are back, and we're getting into the pennant races, and that's why we're back full force, ready to rock. Tyler, I know it's been a tough 3 weeks for your Red Sox and watching them. You just told me that it's been the toughest 3 weeks of watching Red Sox baseball.
Honestly, arguably, I think back 2011, definitely sits differently. That was a team that you saw and they were World Series favorites throughout the year, entering the year. But just, I think the feeling, the big thing about this Red Sox team, the reason, like, even people, someone like you who watches from the Blue Jays perspective, people across the league, there wasn't a team having more fun who was more loose than the Red Sox were until really the All-Star break. And then, unfortunately, after that, they've been playing 500 ball since. August has been a turn for the worse where, they were just getting beat on by whether there was the Yankees or the Rays, the Blue Jays. It came from the division, and it got coupled with the trade deadline that many people went and tried to blame it on the Red Sox, and that's why they failed. Realistically, that wasn't the case. The people who were crying and begging for Anthony Rizzo at thinking he would have saved you, he's hitting 200 with the Yankees. Obviously, he had the COVID stint during that time and all of that, but, if you insert him into this lineup over this period, he doesn't fix it. They really haven't been the same since they left Oakland. What was it? The beginning of July, like right around that July 4th area. And everyone remembers that series. It was a pretty wild one. But since then, the bats just haven't been right. JD Martinez hasn't been himself really since the end of May. Xander Bogaerts dealt with a wrist injury through most of July that really hampered him. Rafael Devers has been having a tough August. And, this Red Sox team, you look at it, the engine is their offense. You know what I mean? Or their offense is the engine. Let me flip that. That's what was supposed to guide this team. And there were points, the starting pitching struggled. They've bounced back. They've been really good as of late. The bullpen, not so much. They're the ones kind of crapping the bed right now. Matt Barnes in the closer position. But, like we were talking, Logan, before the show, last night, if you were watching that Minnesota Twins game, it was everybody. It's been stressful, but, people who said the Red Sox season is over at this point, I'm not going that far. There's a lot of things still breaking right for them. Kyle Schwarber, who has looked excellent since coming over, hasn't played first base yet, but has played left field. First base is expected within the end of the week. It feels like, I don't want to go crazy here, but I think things are starting to flip for the Red Sox. A lot of bad luck is falling out of the way, and they're starting to get back to at least that normal level where every night is not making you want to cry.
Well, every team goes through a tough stretch, right? Now, the problem is that a lot of people thought that this is more than a tough stretch. This is one of those things where, okay, this is where the road ends for the Red Sox. They weren't in a position where they were going to contend anyway. People are going back to March and saying, come on, we didn't think the Red Sox were going to make the playoffs. You can't do that because I said it how many times? I said there's something special about this Red Sox team. I was saying that in July, like you said, and they started struggling in July, but I was saying that then. So you can't just go back 4 months and say, well, come on, this was never meant to be. Now, Matt Barnes, I mean, I don't know. If I'm in Boston, I would assume that people are walking around. Everyone you talk to on the street are saying he cannot close another game again. Is he still in this closer's position? Does Cora still trust Matt Barnes?
I think Alex Cora is the ultimate player manager. Last night, really, Matt Barnes is out there, and he didn't have it. And Cora is, he could have pulled them earlier than he did. Hansel Robles was sitting in the bullpen ready, and he goes and he gives Barnes the best pep speech you could ask for. He's patting him on the back, and Cora doesn't do stuff like that unless it's really needed, where he's like, I need you to come through, please. Like, I believe in you. And he's a big person who tries to show that he believes and gives, confidence to his players. You see it with Rafael Devers. There was a moment with Kevin Plawecki during the Yankee series where he just got there and really gave a kind of a passionate moment. With Matt Barnes right now, you can't put him in the closer spot for you. He hasn't been right since the All-Star break. And I think partially, for Red Sox fans, August has been the month Matt Barnes has always faltered in his career. I believe he has a career 8 ERA in that month. So unfortunately, you see him with the highest workload of his entire career at this, or in any year at this point. He was on pace to set records in all those different spots. He ran out of gas, and he's out of gas right now. But he usually bounces back in September for the stretch run. If I'm the Red Sox, I sit him down. Whether you want to put him in the 6th inning, 7th inning, let him find himself, kind of like the Yankees did with the Aroldis Chapman at one point this year, who is also struggling now. But Matt Barnes needs a breather. Watching what he did yesterday, you knew Josh Donaldson, you could just feel it. You could tell when a pitcher doesn't feel right. And Barnes was so confident earlier in the year. He was one of the best relievers in baseball. But you need to take a step back right now and just really, I'd go closer by committee, or the option that really is sticking with me, and this would still be closer by committee, but you give your bullpen more options. Take Tanner Houck out of the rotation. It's not that he can't handle that 5th spot. It's the fact you need an arm in the bullpen. If Garrett Whitlock is going to be that crucial and he can't pitch 1 or 2 times a week, you need someone to play the Garrett Whitlock role for this bullpen. And Tanner Houck, he has a hard time going through the order more than 2 times. You saw it in the Blue Jays series. Great stuff, but it's 2 pitches. That's all it is right now. He doesn't have a true third. And, you can't survive. Most starting pitchers can't without that 3rd pitch. And I think he'll develop it. The splitter's coming along. But right now, I'd be willing to put Garrett Richards back in or bring up Connor Seabold and see what happens.
Yeah, you almost have to do by committee. And that's what was coming to my mind of the Red Sox. And who's to say you have to have these fixed roles in the bullpen as well, right? I mean, look what the Indians did in 2016 with Andrew Miller. Miller was by far the most lights-out guy in the bullpen. They had Cody Allen as the quote-unquote closer. But if there was a crucial spot in the 6th inning, Andrew Miller's coming in the game. They're not waiting until the 8th inning, the 9th inning to really go to their high-leverage guys. So by committee, who's hot? Right now, Matt Barnes isn't. If there's a spot in the 5th inning, for example, that you want to give Matt Barnes a look, maybe the Red Sox are up 4-1, one of these things, 5-1, maybe it's a blowout. Get Matt Barnes in there, get his confidence back. The Yankees did do it with Chapman. The Yankees were in Seattle several weeks ago when Chapman was really struggling. They were up by, I think, 10 or 11 runs in the 9th inning, and Boone put in Chapman, and he said, let's see if you can close it out. You got an 11-run lead. Okay, so you kind of need to do something like that, but it is becoming an issue, okay? The biggest fear is being in a wild card game, for example, and at Yankee Stadium, and here comes Matt Barnes coming from the bullpen, and everyone is thinking the exact same thing. Oh, no, here we go. You can't get to that spot, so his confidence has to build up before we get to that point. But what about the trade deadline, Tyler? I look at the trade deadline. People were so quick to jump on Chaim Bloom and say, this deadline was a failure. This is the exact same thing as 2019. Dombrowski failed at the deadline then, and here we are in the same spot. Are you disappointed now, looking in hindsight, that the Red Sox didn't pull the trigger on more of a big-name acquisition?
No, and the thing I continue to stick with, I think Chaim Bloom misread the market to some degree. And listen, I'm as big of a Chaim Bloom guy as you're going to find. If you thought they were going to land Kyle Gibson even, listen, Kyle Gibson and Ian Kennedy, what did that cost? Spencer Howard. You're talking about a guy who was a top 60 prospect entering the year. That's more highly regarded than Tanner Houck. And, anybody in the Red Sox organization or fan base would say, you can't trade Tanner Houck right now because, number one, your organization has struggled to develop pitchers, and he's shown a lot of promise early in his career despite not being fully developed. The other one, Anthony Rizzo, which would have been 2 top prospects from the Red Sox. I understand where people are coming from, where they're like, oh, it's such a perfect fit. Well, besides the first 2 games with the Yankees, Anthony Rizzo has not done much for them, and that's just reality. And that's not me saying that Anthony Rizzo doesn't have an impact or that he's going to hit 200 for his entire Yankees tenure. But if you put Anthony Rizzo where this team is right now and, simulate it as if he was around, it's not fixing the lineup. The lineup has sunk this team. It's been the main thing. While the rotation has struggled, the bullpen has struggled, the offense has sputtered. And that the offense never sputtered earlier in the season. That's what kept them afloat was even when Nick Pivetta couldn't go deep in a game. Martin Perez had a bad game. Who was going to pick him up? Eduardo Rodriguez struggled so badly the first half of the year, and the offense picked him up again and again and again. It just hasn't been like that lately, and it's been really that kind of middle of the lineup being off at different times. And Kyle Schwarber coming here, he's been so big for a Red Sox team that swings at everything. they're at the bottom of the American League, or the bottom half in terms of drawing walks, which is very not Red Sox like if you've watched this team over the years. Kyle Schwarber's as patient as a bat you're going to find. He's played 8 games, walked 8 times, 8 hits over that stretch, doing just about everything you could ask for. Now people will say, well, he's not playing first base for you, right? The defense has been a problem. The defense was never something to write home about with this team. When you have Xander Bogaerts at shortstop, who I love Xander, there's not much time left for him at shortstop. He's going to have to play another position. Rafael Devers can make the above average play, but there are going to be times where he kind of loses it a little bit. And Bobby Dalbec, not great at first base. But when you have guys underperforming like a Christian Vasquez, who, defensively just kind of weak at times. We saw a really poor tag the other night. You have other outfielders in terms of Jarren Duran before he got optioned out there who aren't great. JD Martinez is being forced in the outfield who he could field the position, but, he's not going to give you much out there. I get it. It comes down to the offense. If the offense is hitting and not, being basically useless like they were coming out of the trade deadline, you're going to be okay. But when you don't hit, you're putting more pressure on the starting rotation, more pressure on a defense that already isn't great as it is. And you're going to see these things, these littler holes that they had no problem filling just grow bigger and bigger.
What's the level of concern in Boston right now? And then I'll ask your personal opinion. 1 to 10. That's the scale that this team can't beat out the Oakland A's, for example, and get into a wild card spot. I'm going to forget the division. We'll get into that later, but just a wild card spot. Level of concern in Boston.
100%. Whatever the highest number, when I tell you, basically almost everyone at the station I work at has said the season's done and declared it on air. Every caller calls this team frauds. Heimblum should be fired. Alex Cora is not doing his job. It's Boston, right? This is the game. They're very passionate. We know how it is, but everyone's counted this team out, has said Heimblum has finally shown that he doesn't know how to work here in Boston. He's still operating like he's the Rays, all this different garbage. He hasn't got this team here. He didn't hit on Hunter Renfroe, who has, been one of the best signings of the offseason, or Kike Hernandez, who has been one of the team's best hitters since the end of June and an on-base machine. Nick Pivetta, the trade with him and Connor Siebold coming over. Yeah. People forget so quickly. They write things off. You look back, how could Bobby Dalbec be your first baseman? What was this season entering the year? Don't forget, it was to see what blocks fit. Let's see Bobby Dalbec before Tristan Cassis emerges in 2022, who shined at the Olympics and looked great. Another thing we haven't been around since. But, sorry, Bobby Dalbec's what Bobby Dalbec is. I was never a believer in this guy, but it is what it is. Could they have got Anthony Rizzo? Sure. But you're talking about a team that needed a bigger bat than Anthony Rizzo to help this lineup. You're going to give up 3 top 10 prospects in a year where realistically, are the Red Sox a World Series favorite? Or is it even likely they get there? Not really. You look at the pitching staff, it is what it is. You have 80% of Chris Sale out there, which is still better than most. Nate Eovaldi, Eduardo Rodriguez, who's been unlucky, but has been inconsistent this year. It's hard to really go there and say, for a team that's trying to be like the Dodgers and be sustainable, sell off your farm system. And I don't want to speak for Blue Jays fans here, but if I was a Blue Jays fan, I'd be pretty nervous right now. You traded Austin Martin, a guy who was one of the more upper echelon prospects in all of baseball, Simeon Woods Richardson. These are big pieces to lose, and it's not looking like you're going to make the playoffs this year. I don't blame Heimblum for kind of walking the middle ground. Could he have got you Ryan Tepera? Yeah, that would have been a nice addition. Didn't happen. But at the moment, Austin Davis, I like how he's looked here so far. A lot of the advanced metrics point in the right direction. Hansel Robles, well, hey, last night, you don't win that game without him. He came through and got it down. And I'm not trying to say I'm a big fan of him, but you managed to get pieces that helped. If the middle of the lineup can do what it's supposed to do, I think this team's going to be just fine. But the Red Sox, according to Baseball America, now have the 9th best farm system in the entire sport. Everything's trending in the right direction. Bad luck happens, bad stretches, whether you want to talk about the Dodgers at points this year, the Rays, the Yankees, the Braves. All these teams were dead to rights at different points, and they found a way. They've just worked out of these bad periods. It happens.
No, I'm with you. And it's funny you mentioned Bobby Dalbec. I remember asking you in mid-April, and it was when Dalbec was really struggling at the plate. And I said, so what were people saying going into the season in spring training? And you were saying, oh, my goodness, people are so excited. They're expecting 30, 35 home runs. He's going to be a force corner infielder. And it just didn't happen. But Dalbec has kind of had those games. He's found his stroke. He's a piece. And like you said, it was an experimental year, seeing what we have kind of thing. Dalbec's all part of that.
Yeah, and people talk like they're like, look at what the Dodgers did. Do you have any pulse or timeline for where the Red Sox are at? No, you didn't pay attention last year. You tune in when they're competitive. And you think, oh, they should immediately do everything to go and win you a World Series. That's not how you have sustainability in baseball. You have to walk that middle line. And Chaim Bloom, could he have walked that middle line a little better? Yes. But did he fail you? Did he commit a fireable offense? No. Anyone with eyes on baseball can tell you the Red Sox and Chaim Bloom are going in a really good direction right now, and a lot of organizations would switch with them if they could. So, that's where I kind of stand. And I tried to tell people, Bobby Dalbec's hit tool, it's not good enough. The defense, not great. He's a little stiff over there. But people entering this year thought he was going to be an AL Rookie of the Year candidate. 40 home runs, I saw some people saying, like, be realistic. People, that's Boston for you. They're so high, they go too high, and so low, they go too low. The middle is often not as interesting, but it's reality, right? And I think that's just where things are. And I hate to be that person. Who's hit better in August, Bobby Dalbec or Anthony Rizzo? It's been Bobby Dalbec. It's just numbers-wise, you see it. So once again, those people who say, if you dealt for Anthony Rizzo, which has been, sports talk radio, people think if Anthony Rizzo was here, the Red Sox would be perfectly fine and where they were before. Sorry, Anthony Rizzo was not going to save this lineup and make JD Martinez hit. It wasn't going to make Matt Barnes not crap the bed. Be realistic. That's all I ask.
Yep, and games aren't won on paper as well, so you can look at Anthony Rizzo. Look, it's a hot commodity. It's a hot name. It would make headlines at the trade deadline. And, from afar, right, I don't want to act like I'm in Boston speaking to people, speaking to the fans that go to the games and whatnot. But I see on Twitter casually sometimes, I see, well, thank goodness the Patriots are coming soon. I mean, the Red Sox, enough is enough with the Red Sox. Come on, let's watch New England Patriots football. So I can kind of sense the mood. It's tense.
Of course. And listen, it's okay to be tense. Like, there is nothing wrong with that. But when you start jumping and saying things like Chaim Bloom failed you, oh, they should have traded for these guys, when your farm system and your just the window and where you're at, you're not there. And people who wanted the Red Sox to go slightly over the luxury tax, it's a 2-year window. That's what you saw the Yankees do, who got under it and had a better farm system entering the trade deadline. They were able to do a little more. They also were sitting there, and Aaron Boone knew his job was on the line. Brian Cashman knew his job was being talked about, possibly being on the line. Things have changed since then, obviously. But you know what? Why are the Yankees so good right now? I don't know. Because DJ LeMahieu started hitting, because Giancarlo Stanton started hitting, because Luke Voit started hitting. Luis Gil showed up, has been pitching his butt off over there, doing a lot of impressive things. Their talent is finally living up to what they were supposed to be. And they got healthy. Like, the last time the Yankees played the Red Sox, before, everything happened in August and all that, Greg Allen was in their lineup. Yeah. Ryan Lamar. Like, get a clue. They're not even fully healthy yet either. Gio Urshela is working his way back. Gleyber Torres has been out. Like, pay attention. But when all you read is box scores and headlines, that's the garbage takes and narratives you come up with.
The Yankees can actually make almost a full all-star caliber roster with the players that are injured right now. It might not be an all-star team. There are all-stars who are missing, and multiple all-stars as well. Now, we'll get back to the AL East, a little more about the Rays, a little more about the Yankees. But before we get accused of any East Coast bias, let's go to the NL West, because this is intriguing as well. The Padres are down big time. Okay, if this was a stock market, the Padres would be way down on the New York Stock Exchange. There'd be no doubt about it. Now, the Reds are really enjoying the Padres' downhill, nightmarish kind of run here. But that means that the Padres are totally out of the divisional conversation. And that was the whole big thing this year. The three-headed monster, the Giants, the Dodgers, the Padres. Well, you can take the Padres out of it. Now it's going to be a two-man race, Dodgers, Giants. And what is happening of San Diego? This is something that we talked about at the trade deadline. We say, well, they just couldn't pay up for a guy like Jose Barrios. The Dodgers came in and stole Max Scherzer. And here the Padres are playing their worst baseball by far. All year, they've lost 10 out of their last 12. And here come the Cincinnati Reds, going to take that wild card spot.
If I was the Padres, and listen, So much has gone wrong, but really, if you're looking at it, the pitching has completely fallen off. I believe in mid-June, they were at the top staff ERA. Like, you know what I mean? And everyone was sitting there applauding them. And, Yu Darvish was rolling. Joe Musgrove was rolling. They weren't fully healthy, but the pitching was getting the job done across the boards and then some. Now, Larry Rothschild's been fired, sent home. Injuries have piled up for that rotation. Even their depth, Mackenzie Gore, getting his mechanics rebuilt and trying to figure out what's going to happen with him moving forward. Denilson Lamet could not give you anything in the starting rotation this year. These were big things they were kind of depending on. Blake Snell, what a disappointment. Making Kevin Cash, who pulled him in the World Series last year. You see why? Do you guys get it now? He struggles. He's another guy. You get him in that fifth inning area, and it's not pretty. So if I'm the Padres and you've dealt with Fernando Tatis's injuries coming on and off, and I give him credit, I have no idea how this man is still producing with his shoulder separating so many times this year. Now playing the outfield to this point. And you've had guys like Jake Cronenworth doing some pretty crazy stuff. It's just, you can't win without pitching. It just is what it is. And when your starting pitching is this much of a mess, that's what's going to happen to you. And I think where the Padres stand right now, can you really expect it to get better? Ryan Weathers is getting smacked up on a regular basis as well. What are you going to do?
It's interesting of the Padres because at the end of the day, this was a team that we were all saying World Series this, World Series that. It's going to be them and the Dodgers. But you're right. Without the pitching, it can't happen. I like the move for Fernando Tatis going to the outfield because he's just so good. He's going to transition effortlessly. It's amazing of Tatis.
It's unfair.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous how smooth he got. What the hell? How? You know what I mean? That's not normal. But when you speak about a generational talent, that's what he is.
Yep, and looking like an MVP. He really is. Right now, let's look at another potential MVP candidate, Bryce Harper. What is this, 2015? Bryce Harper with the Philadelphia Phillies, who really were making a push for a little bit there, and then they knocked the Mets out. The Phillies aren't playing their best baseball, per se, right now. They are kind of on the losing end, but that said, that NL East is in such a way where it really doesn't matter. It's going to be a total toss-up. The Braves were playing well. The Phillies were playing real well. With Bryce Harper, does he really have an MVP case, or is just all just people trying to relive a year in Bryce Harper's career? Is he really an MVP candidate?
Yeah, he's in the conversation. You know what I mean? I think in order for him to win, the Phillies are going to have to make a push here. You know what I mean? And this was my problem with the Phillies. They got to first place and everything was turning right, but quickly you realize the holes that roster still has. And they gave up, like I said earlier, Spencer Howard to get Kyle Gibson. And Kyle Gibson's been good for them. It's a really good addition. It's just, unfortunately, you need more than that. That roster needs more than that. And it's kind of obvious. You've seen the Braves take over, and listen, I want to say a sorry. I need to apologize to the Braves, Alex Anthopoulos. I said that Braves team and the moves they made at the deadline, I was like, I don't really see what you're doing. Shut me up big time. They've taken over the NL East. The Mets, sorry, talk about a collapse. One of the biggest you're going to find across the sport right now. I really like where the Braves are at in their roster. They're getting healthy at the right time. I think that rotation is going to really kind of firm up and be better than a lot of people think down the stretch. And a lot of that's been, getting back, Ian Anderson, all these pieces just coming around. It's badly needed. And, you've got guys like Charlie Morton on that staff. You have some bullpen concerns still there, especially late in games, but they're finding ways to win. And it's been a little hard against the Yankees. You're running into the hottest baseball team across the league right now, but they're going shot after shot with them. Just speaks for a team that doesn't have their best player in Ronald Acuna Jr.
Yeah, you apologize to the Braves. I'm going to apologize to the Phillies, who are really putting themselves in a conversation to win this division. And I was saying at the trade deadline, what was I saying? I was saying they're the biggest losers. They didn't do enough, they've just proved me wrong. Because, you know what? They probably did do enough, and they put themselves in a conversation of a division that we thought would be the best in baseball. It's been anything but. This division is just such a notch below right now. You see what the Brewers are doing in the Central, the Giants in the West, and compare that to the East. I mean, it's not even close, really, the level of competition right now. So, yeah, the NL East is a total wash right now. I don't know what to expect, but I do have to apologize to the Phillies, and you're going to apologize to the Braves. And the Mets, I guess I'll apologize to them too, because I thought they were going to run away with this thing, and they didn't do it.
Me too. And Javier Baez was like, wow, that's a great fit. You know what I mean? And he goes on the IL pretty quickly right after. He's come back since, but it's tough. They lost so much while he was gone. They fell out. And you look at it, it's like, wow, kind of regretting those moves, and you can't because you were supposed to make them. You just really got to be disappointed. The offense is crap the bed, man. Like, they are having such a hard time scoring runs. And I feel bad. Pete Alonso is giving these speeches post game, trying to like inspire them, talk them up, and there's no response, none. Michael Conforto, just embarrassing season. You got guys on the team pushing Steve Cohen, talking trash on Twitter, saying, they're better than this. Like, not a good feel. Marcus Stroman retweeting things, calling him a clown. And you look at this team, like, there's legit foundation pieces that are leaving. Marcus Stroman's probably not coming back. Michael Conforto, like, we'll see. He's lost so much money probably with how he's performed this year. You're going to have to figure things out. You got JD Davis. You need a real third baseman. You know what I mean? It's not great. The Mets really, it feels like a Mets year. I hate to say that, but, people were excited and they kind of turned into what they usually are. But if I'm being real, the Phillies and Mets, I don't think they're going to create much buzz down the stretch here. I really don't. I think the Phillies are a tier above the Mets at this point, but the Braves just are playing on a different level right now, and I think they have the least holes out of everybody there.
Interesting. So you're liking the Braves to come out of there like we anticipated at the start of the season. Isn't it amazing, like the roller coaster of a Major League Baseball season? The Braves were out of it. We're not even going to talk about them. But yet, in March, we were sitting here saying, yeah, the Braves, they're the team in the NL East.
It's pretty similar, obviously not in terms of what happened to these teams throughout the year, but me and you, we both had the Yankees taking the division. We thought they were going to have this great year. Things were low. I think if you asked almost anybody in July, they would have been like, not the Yankees year. You know what I mean? Just not whatsoever. The team was broken down. They looked as down as anybody emotionally. Look at them now. They're riding hot, and, no disrespect to the Rays, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Yankees get right in that conversation for the top of the AL East. And, the Rays are going through some of their own struggles despite, things. It's not like they're collapsing or anything record-wise or like that, but their starting rotation has scuffled quite a bit.
Yeah, and now the Yankees are looking like the best team in baseball. And I mean, I know they're on a streak right now, but they're actually looking like the best team in baseball. I know that they're hoping to get Kluber back healthy as well so he can contribute.
People forgot about him.
Yeah, we forgot about him.
Like, I haven't heard many people talking about him in terms of, trying to project out the AL East. Everyone was like, well, Chris Sale's going to be back, right? Like, that was kind of the talk of the AL East. Luis Severino, like, these different pieces, like, and Severino's obviously a much cloudier situation considering some of the injuries and different stuff he's dealt with, but they're both slated to contribute. Kluber should be in the rotation. Severino, you'll see what he can give you, but those are real boosts. And you kind of look around, it's like, yeah, everything's falling into place really at the right time for the Yankees.
Good timing, really good timing. And the Rays as well. So let's get into that now. So it does look like their division to lose. And we're kind of getting a clear picture of what's happening in the American League. It's going to be one of those scenarios where, yeah, we expect the Astros to do it. The White Sox are a total lock, and now the Rays are kind of turning into one of those as well. It's now about the wild card race. And what's your general feeling? I'm still going to go, and I don't know how you'll feel about this. I'm still going to go Yankees, Red Sox, wild card game. How do you feel about that?
I'm actually right there with you. The Red Sox, who, they're beating up on bad teams, barely right now. They're barely making it out, but they built up a 2-game lead. Oakland is going through some similar stuff where they're blowing these late leads. Lamonte Wade Jr. just really crushed their dreams the other night. Ty France had a huge homer. Like, they've had some just rough moments overall. And I'm looking at the A's. I think they're going to be right there down the stretch, But if I'm looking out of that group, the A's, the Red Sox, the Mariners are right behind the A's for that wild card, and the Blue Jays right behind them. I think I still feel best about the Red Sox as long as they play up to their potential. But, it's hard to guarantee that right now. But if I was a betting man, I think Red Sox, Yankees in the wild card, Red Sox going to the Bronx. Woo! I think October 5th, they announced the date for the game today. That'd be quite a game, I should say.
And how about this? The Red Sox have never played in a wild card game. It's been around since 2012, and it's kind of hard to believe, right? But they actually, no, they've never played in a wild card game. The Yankees have played in a few, but the Red Sox, no. So that would be a new experience for you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'd be scared, and I'll be real with you. If they make the wild card, I want them to win, but that's a huge success for this year.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think anybody could tell you, if you're in the wild card, you're competing against the Yankees, and the Yankees smoke you. What are you going to say? They have a better team than you. You know what I mean? But you persevered, especially if you make it through this rough stretch when people were crapping all over you and saying it was over. Wow. Like that would be such a big win for me. For Red Sox fans, I should say, like me as a fan, like what can you say at that point? That's a dream for this season. And many people have this team being, around 500, and they're on pace right around, 90-ish wins. Boom. And your farm system's improved. That would be really, that would be crazy. And I think it would be so big for the rivalry. The rivalry has not had too many moments, really. 2018 is the last one that was worth anything and people got hyped about. This is another way to start a new chapter and kind of get things going with a Red Sox team that's much different than the one from back then.
It's a one-game do or die. I'm a big supporter of this current system. I know people are going to say, how can you play 162 games and then play a wild card game? I'm a fan of it. Some people think it's cruel, actually. I have a friend who doesn't really watch baseball at all, but she knows a little bit about sports. And she says, so who's going to make the playoffs this year? So I go through the teams that I think are going to make it. And I said, well, this is just a wild card game, though. These two teams are going to play a one game. And she said, are you kidding me? They play 162 games, and then that's cruel. And I say, well, this is why I love baseball. It's different, and then no one else would do it except us.
No, and I think even when you're watching teams you're not, emotionally invested in, right? You're sweating for them.
Yeah.
I can't, and as a Red Sox fan, I've never been in this position before. Oh my God. I'm going to be sweating from the first inning on, and it's going to be a blast. I hope they do find a way to make it there, and I think they will. I think this Red Sox team, Alex Cora, I believe that he's going to be able to get this team out of the rut they've been out of for the most part. And their schedule is in their favor. It's a pretty weak schedule down the stretch here. So you just got to capitalize. And if they play anywhere close to their talent level, I have a hard time seeing them missing out.
So Miguel Cabrera, okay, now he hits his 500th career home run, and now it's about the quest for 3,000 hits, which will probably happen next season, early next season, if all signs indicate how he's playing right now. But you know what? I love moments like this. We hadn't seen a 500th career home run since David Ortiz. I believe it was Ortiz in 2016 in Tampa Bay. So what are your memorable milestone moments watching baseball? Because I watched that Miggy game, and it's like, I wanted to feel something, a moment you'll never forget. You know what I mean? Is there one that stands out to you growing up watching baseball?
The biggest one for me, the David Ortiz one, stand out a lot, but Manny Ramirez was my favorite childhood player. And when he got to 500, that, in Baltimore, Camden Yards, that was such a moment. I picture in my head, opposite center right field, kind of similar, to Miggy. Yep. And they both had that ability where somehow, nobody knows why, but they could just shift that ball into center and right, and it would just fly. And I just remember Manny hands up, knew he got it. And it was such a cool moment. That's one that really always kind of comes to mind and really sticks with me. Gary Sheffield, when he hit the milestone, those moments, I don't know what it was. I can't remember. Logan, I don't know if you know, but there was maybe MLB 08, the show, where they had the intro and they played all of them through. And it was one of those games. And I just remember as a kid sitting there, and I was like, you didn't appreciate it because you were a kid. And it's all these cool moments, so many of them. And, Miguel Cabrera, I start going through my head and remembering, 2013 Red Sox, Tigers in the ALCS, the Triple Crown, all these different things. Even going back, the infamous trying to intentionally walk him. He shoots the single up,
right.
Walk-off home run in his very first game ever. Miggy, I feel like for our generation, he holds such a special place in a lot of our, baseball fans' hearts.
Mm-hmm. And very easy to cheer for as well. Miguel Cabrera. And you know what? You look at right-handed hitters in the history of the game, he's right there. He really is. And Manny's another one of the great right-handed hitters. But Miguel Cabrera, when he gets to 3,000 hits, so he's going to have 500 career home runs, 3,000 hits. Of course, this is a no doubt Hall of Famer. I can't wait, actually, until December when we get into the Hall of Fame stuff. But he's absolutely a first ballot guy. 500 career home runs is something. It really is. Now, 600, of course, there's not too many people have ever gone at the 600, but 500. So Miguel Cabrera becomes the 28th ever to hit 500 career home runs.
Yeah, and just watching the reaction of a Tigers team, and like, let's be real, a lot of the guys from when he was in his prime aren't there anymore. No. He's playing with a young team led by AJ Hinch, who they've definitely had some really good moments this year, playing above their heads and trying to, they beat the Red Sox, took 2 out of 3 from them, and that's a team that was in a really good place at that time. But you're seeing the Tigers in that next generation come along, and they were so excited for him. And I think half of it was these guys watched him growing up, saw him as one of the best in the game, but also they talk about his leadership and what he's meant. And, no disrespect to Miggy, not much there at this point. I'm not trying to make fun of him or throw him down, but, Albert Pujols is still doing a little bit more than you kind of see at this point from Miguel Cabrera, but just the legacy and everything. I don't want these last couple of years to break people, to make them forget what he was, because like you said, comparing Miguel Cabrera and Manny in the same breath, great right-handed hitters. Miguel Cabrera was clean. This was a guy who was just truly a talent freak, and he worked his ass off. This was just, it's greatness. It's straight up greatness. First Triple Crown since Carl Yastrzemski. That hits a place for Red Sox fans here. It's almost like there's not enough words. And for someone like us, there's not many of these guys left, and they're phasing out of the game. Really, the guys we watched in our childhood. It's emotional, but it's so cool to see, and I hope Miguel Cabrera gets all his flowers right now because he deserves every one of them.
One of my favorites for sure, Miguel Cabrera. And Adrian Beltre was another one. I was sad to see him go and have to just kind of call it a career. That was a tough one as well. And his 3,000th hit in 2017, that was a memorable one. So you look at these milestones and you just wonder. I know Mike Trout has hit different milestones throughout his career. We hope that he can get healthy and continue his quest because, Mike Trout just turned 30. And I think it's very relevant to bring him up. And with the Angels where they are, it's been another rough year. And we're going to have to come back next spring and kind of look at where they are. And Shohei Ohtani is going to be a free agent in 2024. And you got a guy in Mike Trout who, let's face it, 10 years from now, we're going to kind of be talking about him in the same breath as what we just did for Miguel Cabrera and the milestones and this and that. It's going to be all these different things. We expect Mike Trout to be right there hitting that home run or getting this number hit.
Yeah, and the longevity, it's just not something you see in baseball like that anymore. Guys don't last like this. And, obviously at the end of the career, you're not going to be what you once were. But I think that's why what we see with Mike Trout scares us so much, because it's like he's dealt with a good amount of injuries the last couple of years. And we know how great Mike Trout is. If you put a healthy Mike Trout, he's going to put up some of the best numbers of all time. But it takes a lot of things going right for these guys to get to this point. Whether it's a Miguel Cabrera or an Albert Pujols, just to last in the league this long and have this kind of impact. Like, look at Albert Pujols. A lot of people thought he was going to retire when the Angels let him go. Now he's in the middle of a pennant race with the Dodgers, hitting some big home runs for them and a huge part of that entire group. I don't know if Miguel Cabrera is going to get an opportunity like that. I hope somehow the Tigers get there. Who knows, though? Maybe Miguel Cabrera ends up, who knows what happens. That contract is not friendly, but neither was Albert Pujols, and teams go in different directions, different things happen. I hope we get a couple great Miguel Cabrera moments beyond what just legacy stuff at this point. But either way, you close the book on either one of these guys' careers, and you could write 3 books on everything they did and everything they accomplished.
Well said. Absolutely. And I'm real high on the Tigers, actually. I know that they have overachieved in a lot of people's eyes, but when you build a team from pitching like they have, I can go through it. We can talk about the Tigers and the young pitching they have for half an hour. It really is that good. I like what they're doing, and I expect them to improve even more next year.
I agree. They're definitely one of those clubs in the next couple of years that will go from, bottom feeder to right up there as young talent pushing the top. And, Casey Mize, Eric Skubal, Matt Manning. We haven't even mentioned Spencer Torkelson, first overall pick. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much coming their way. Just it takes a little bit of time, and AJ Hinch has nailed it. Absolutely hit it out of the park there. That entire coaching staff has, realistically. They're just a year or two more, and they'll get into that conversation where you can say, oh, they're going to chase a wild card.
Right. They'll be in that position. And I think they're, on a track right now ahead of the Mariners. And I think that we'll look at the Tigers more in a way of saying, yeah, they'll be in the hunt. And the Mariners, to me, they're always kind of in this middling ground. Sometimes they do have real bottom out years, but for the most part, it's kind of been, well, a year like this, 4.5 out, what's going to happen? I think the Tigers can surpass that quite quickly.
I think it's interesting. I actually do like where the Mariners are right now. I think there are a lot of good things that they're doing differently and kind of prioritizing in their farm system. There's just so much coming. You know what I mean? Whether you want to talk about some of the arms they still have coming, Rodriguez down in the minors, who's going to join that outfield and really be another big contributor. Jared Kalenic has still really, or Jared Kelenic, excuse me. I still do that in my head, pronouncing it. And then everyone fixed it when he got to the bigs. Hasn't really found his footing in the majors yet, but he's another guy who's going to, I think, figure it out. I love them getting Abraham Toro, who has just really been impressive since he got there. I like what the Mariners are doing. I like what the Tigers are doing. I think both of those clubs are going to be teams we look at and just see them kind of rise from no one caring. And it feels like we have these conversations every couple of years, which is the crappy part. But they're both super young, super talented teams, forward-thinking teams at the moment too. But what interests me with the Tigers, they don't have a owner/front office that is known for taking things slow when it gets going. And I think that's where you might see a little bit of the difference in them to kind of take a step forward when they start to get closer to that wild card, territory.
Absolutely. It reminds me of the Prince Fielder free agency year. Bring them in. Yes, there you go. And then in 2012, they go to the World Series. So you see how, they're not slowing down. If they see a window to win, they're going to go for it. One more thing, Yadier Molina. He was another guy we were thinking, well, what's going to happen with Yadi? Is he going to retire? In the offseason, we were thinking, will he even play for the Cardinals? We don't know. They have extended him. 2022, he will be a St. Louis Cardinal, but he has said that he will retire after next season. So that's another one, and another great all-star caliber, legendary catcher that we're going to have to say goodbye to.
Yeah, it's another tough one. It just sits with you because you watch the year Adam Wainwright is having with him, and Wainwright's balling, and they're really kind of fused, and we got to see what's going to happen. But Wainwright was the guy telling Yadi to stay, and bringing him back. Now Yadi's saying, I got to do the same with Wainwright. And it's just crazy. And Yadi's still a solid player, great defensively. The bat is about league average for a catcher. But when you watch him play, he doesn't look his age. He doesn't look at one bit. And for a catcher, how many catchers at that age could even catch still, such rare company. I love Buster Posey, but Buster Posey was deteriorating so quickly before he got a year off last year. And he's been amazing this year, but Yadi, when has Yadi ever gotten a break? This dude's been out there more than anybody on a day-to-day basis. For the Cardinals, that's going to be a big leadership loss, and they've really been in that ugly middling ground for a little bit now. Hopefully they push things in a little bit more even for Yadi's last year, because he's another one of those guys, that organization, and so much he's done for them and been part of them. He deserves to go out on a high note. It doesn't, World Series, let's be realistic, right? That's a tough ask, but I hope they can kind of compete a little closer and give Yadi a proper send-off.
I think they will, because there was a time this year when the Cardinals, we thought, were absolutely going to win the Central, and we're really going to make some noise this time of year, August, September. It hasn't happened. Maybe next year. I think they will. I think that division's weak. I think it's wide open. I think the Brewers are good, but I don't know how the Brewers are going to bounce back next year and kind of rebound after having a great year this year. Can they do it again, kind of thing? So the Brewers are always going to be there, but I like the Cardinals moving forward. Kind of reminds me, I know Albert Pujols didn't retire after 2011, but that was his last year with the Cardinals, and that was a great send-off, of course. And for a wild card team as well, it's not like they were a powerhouse during the regular season. They end up winning the World Series, and that was Pujols' send-off to St. Louis. Who knows? Maybe they can make a bit of a push, get into the playoffs next year. I absolutely see that happen.
Yeah, I just, as long as they're not sitting out a rotation with John Lester, J.A. Happ, and, it's not by choice. They've had so many injuries in that rotation as the year's gone along. But I hope him and Wainwright really get to go out together, because I don't know. Not that I can't picture one, obviously we know Yadi's retiring, but Wainwright has really walked that line in recent years of saying, I'm ready to go with my family and kind of go about it. He's pitching as well as anybody in baseball is right now, but I hope to see them two go out together, go out on the right note and kind of close the chapter. And what, is a generation of ball players that is very, very, very small and makes me feel very, very, very old.
There you go. Yes, that is part of it, right? When we say goodbye to these players who are in the league for so long, guys my age, your age, are really going to be having that kind of feeling about it. And it is sad, but it is reality, and that's life. I mean, for someone, there's people who watched Dave Winfield play or Ricky Henderson, and they're saying it was sad when they left. Get over it. Well, okay, right? So, I guess we do have to get over it, and that is just life. That is The Squeeze. It's presented by Primetime Sports Talk. My name is Logan Lockhart. That is Tyler Milliken. Final words. Let's get back to the pennant races here. What are you looking forward to most when it comes to maybe some surprises we might see and teams that are continuing to flourish?
Big things I'm looking at. The Brewers are arguably as fun of a team across the entire sport. I know we didn't hit on them a ton today, but there'll be plenty of reason. They're just playing constantly good baseball. You know what I mean? The job Craig Counsell and them are doing. Willie Adames. Woo! What a move that ended up being, man. And I think me and you were on that very early saying how much we like that deal for them. But Brewers are a blast. I think the Reds are very exciting, and they're going to keep really making life hell for the Padres now that the Padres are behind them. And I think you look at the AL East and the wild card. Listen, Blue Jays, Red Sox, Yankees, Rays, there's still a lot more to come as those teams battle, I think. And the Blue Jays are still pretty far out. That team, the fact that their bats are the part struggling for them right now, that will not last long. We know it. I'm expecting fireworks. I think it's going to be one of the greatest down the stretches kind of things, competitive baseball wise, we've had in the last few, recent years.
So let's have a repeat of 2011 without the collapses at the end. How about that? Yes.
Please. Anything not to watch Jonathan Papelbon have his dreams crushed and that entire team walk off the field. Anything but that.
And no, Carl Crawford won't be returning either, so that's good. So we won't have a repeat there. But you never know. The Orioles are in last place, just like they were in 2011, and you never know what can happen. But
Logan, stop. Nope.
It won't happen. It won't happen. I promise you. That was, and I said it the day after, I said that won't happen for another 100 years. So it won't happen again. That is The Squeeze. And yeah, good point about the Blue Jays. The starting rotation is scary good right now. Barrios is struggling a bit, but you know what? If they're going to get that kind of pitching, just wait till the bats come around. And it's unfortunate. It might be too little too late for Toronto. But yes, there's a lot of optimism moving forward. That is The Squeeze. One more time. I promise it's the final time. I'm Logan Lockhart. That's Tyler Milliken. Here we are, signing off.